All right, let's talk about a word that honestly can make pretty much anyone's stomach drop: assessment. I know, but what if we've been looking at it completely backwards? In this explainer, we're going to dive into how we can flip the script and turn assessment from something we dread into a powerful tool that actually helps us learn. This quote from Dr. Sabuj Ahmed it absolutely nails it. Powerful yet misunderstood. That's the perfect way to put it. We're so used to thinking of assessment as this big, scary, final judgment, right? But maybe, just maybe, its real job is something totally different. I mean, let's be real for a second. When I say assessment, what's the first thing that pops into your head? If you're a student, it's probably late nights, tons of coffee, and that knot of anxiety in your stomach. And for teachers, oh man, it's just mountains of papers to grade, right? It feels like this huge burden we all just have to put up with. So that's the big question we're tackling today. How do we take this thing that feels like a wall and turn it into a bridge? A bridge that actually connects what's being taught with what's being learned and ultimately helps students succeed. Okay, so where do we even start? Well, the first step is to really look past all the usual stuff, the tests, the grades, and kind of tear down our old ideas about what assessment even is. Let's bust a few myths right off the bat. First up, assessment is just testing. Nope. A test is just one tool in the toolbox. Assessment is the whole process of figuring out what's going on with learning. Then there's the idea that more tests mean better learning. We know now that's just not true. It just leads to burnout for everyone. And finally, grades. Are they the best feedback? Well, a letter grade tells you what happened, but it doesn't tell you how to get better. It's a dead end. And that leads us to a really, really important distinction here. You've got two main types. On one hand, you have summative assessment. Think of this as the assessment of learning. It's the final exam, the big paper at the end, it's the judgment. But then you have formative assessment. And this is the real game changer. It's assessment for learning. It's a checkup that happens while you're learning to help steer the ship. So, if it's not all about tests and grades, then what is the true purpose of assessment? This is where everything starts to click into place. Assessment for learning totally flips the script. The focus isn't on judging the student anymore, it's about giving the teacher information. It's like collecting little pieces of evidence in real time to answer the most important questions a teacher can ask. Okay, are they getting it? And what do I need to do right now to help them get there? And here we are, back to that central idea, the bridge. An assessment shouldn't be a wall you run into. It should be the very thing that helps you get from one side to the other, closing that gap between what's taught and what's actually learned. You see, this whole thing isn't a one-and-done event. It's a cycle, a constant loop. You set goals, you see what the students are doing, you figure out what that tells you, you give feedback, and then, and this is key, you adjust what you're doing as a teacher. It's a conversation, not a final verdict. Okay. Let's talk about the absolute heart of this whole process, the thing that makes the entire cycle work: feedback. This is the engine. This is what actually fuels a student's growth. But, and this is a huge but, not all feedback is created equal, not even close. I mean, look at this. Good job. Okay, that feels nice for a second, but what do you do with that? Nothing. It's a dead end. Now compare that to, your thesis is clear, but your second argument needs more evidence. See? That is a roadmap. Now the student knows exactly what to work on. So, what's the recipe for really great feedback? Well, it's got to be timely, not a month later. It has to be super specific and actionable, something a student can actually use. It should be balanced, tell them what they did well and what they can improve. And, maybe most importantly, it needs to be in language they can actually understand and use to take that next step. And yeah, you guessed it, feedback is a cycle too. It's not a monologue where the teacher just talks. The loop isn't closed until the student actually gets to do something with that feedback, reflect on it, revise their work, and then apply it to the next thing they do. That's when it sticks. That's when it becomes real learning. Okay, so if we're building this amazing bridge, well, it has to be a bridge that everyone can cross. Every single learner, no matter what. This is where a brilliant idea called universal design for assessment comes into play. Think of it like this. Instead of building a house with only stairs and then having to add a clunky ramp later for someone who needs it, you build the house with ramps and wide doorways from the very beginning. You plan for everyone from the start. So what does that actually look like? Well, it means giving students different ways to show you what they know. Maybe it's not always a written essay. Maybe it's a presentation, a video, a poster. It means using simple, clear language, breaking down huge projects into smaller steps, and giving students some choice. And let's be super clear. This isn't about lowering the bar. It's about creating more pathways to get over it. Now, it's really crucial here to understand the difference between two key terms, accommodations and modifications. An accommodation changes how a student shows what they know, like getting extra time on a test. The learning goal is exactly the same. But a modification changes what is being assessed, like using a simpler text. Both can be necessary, but they are fundamentally different things. All right, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Where is all this going? What does the future of assessment and really the future of learning look like? Look, the world is changing at an incredible pace, and our assessments have got to keep up. It's just not enough anymore to measure how much stuff a student can memorize. The real question is, what can they do with what they know? Can they adapt? Can they think critically? Can they create something new? This means we need to start designing assessments that value these deeper skills, things like critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. It's about looking for ethical reasoning, not just the right answer on a multiple-choice test. Honestly, in a world with AI, these are the uniquely human skills that are going to matter most. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Assessment of the future must prioritize learning over labeling. It's a fundamental shift in purpose. It's about growth, not just grades. So we're left with this one simple but incredibly powerful question. What is the real point of all this? Is it to sort and rank students? Or is it to support every single one of them on their journey? Because how we answer that question, well, that's going to define the future of learning.